Diane Cooper with Weather Integrations. In this video, we're going to discuss what we're thinking for the late June into July of 2017 climate and weather outlooks. I want to highlight that this video was created on June 16th of 2017. So to kick off, what we're thinking for the rest of this week for rainfall, and this is from the time frame of today, June 16th through June 23rd. And you can see that we have some decent rains coming in across the northern part of the U.S. and then it just really blossoms as you get into the central U.S. and east coast. And that's because we're in a really zonal pattern. Our jet stream is farther north right now, and so that's just bringing systems into the northern regime, and again that starts to pull in moisture as it gets to the east. So we've got several inches of rainfall that we're looking at in many areas across the Ohio Valley and into the east coast through the next few days. From a temperature standpoint, this is for the 18th through the 22nd, because we've got that jet stream that's farther north, we're really allowing the heat to build, and it's going to really continue to build into the southwest. They've already seen some pretty warm temperatures, and unfortunately for them, those warm temperatures are going to continue. Because June started off the Atlantic hurricane season, we wanted to take a quick look at what we're thinking for tropical activity over the next couple of days. We're really not able to look at tropical activity in a longer term outlook on any specifics, but this will give you an idea of what we're thinking at least through the 16th to the 20th. So for the next 5 days, we are watching two areas. Again, this is from the National Hurricane Center. One in the Gulf Coast region and then one in the Atlantic Ocean, kind of southern latitudes. Both areas have about a 60% chance of seeing tropical development. So if you live in the Gulf Coast, I really recommend you continue to monitor for this first storm system. You know, this one that's going to be in the southern latitudes, it could really impact anywhere. So just continue to watch, but this one's going to be several days out before we really start to see any impacts, if it even impacts the U.S. and develops. So looking at precipitation through most of the remainder of June, this goes to the 29th of June. And we're looking at above normal rainfall patterns for much of the Great Lakes region into the east and even parts of the Gulf Coast states. So that's shown with the areas of green. For the areas in white, that's just showing really kind of normal precipitation. So that's across Florida and into much of the central U.S. And then as we go out west, honestly, most of that region is looking at below normal precipitation, with the exception of far northwestern Washington state, where we are showing a slight hint of above normal precipitation. Temperature-wise, this is really where you can see that zonal pattern taking shape, and that's why we have the below normal temperatures across the north, that narrow area of normal, and then a large area of above normal shown in the oranges and reds. From a precipitation standpoint, for July itself, for the most part, we're watching two areas for above normal precipitation. One is more that western Gulf of Mexico, starting in southern Mississippi, most of Louisiana, and into eastern Texas. The eastern Texas coast really has a chance of seeing a slightly even stronger shift of above normal. The other area we're watching is as you go into Montana and western North Dakota, and that's got even a little bit stronger signal for above normal as you get to the Canadian border. On the flip side, if you go to the Intermountain West, Central Rockies, we're looking at below normal chances of precipitation. Otherwise, as you look at the country, you're seeing lots of white, and that means that we really don't get a good signal of above or below normal precipitation. So you have equal chances of seeing above, below, or normal. I want to highlight, we are in the summer, and thunderstorms really do predominate our precipitation. And isolated thunderstorms are not going to be well accounted for in these longer range outlooks. In addition, I kind of mentioned a little bit earlier that we're not able to really isolate out specific hurricane activity in a longer range pattern. And so with that in mind, thunderstorms and hurricane activity is not really well accounted for in these monthly and seasonal outlooks products. From a temperature standpoint for July, if you look, we see lots of orange and red, and that just means most of the country is going to be above normal. There are some areas where we've got some stronger signals of above normal, and that's really much of the Four Corners region. Parts of deep South Texas, more Brownsville. Central and southern Florida is actually looking at a stronger signal of above normal temperatures, and then even parts of northeastern Maine. So next we want to take a look at the drought situation. And this was the drought monitor that was issued on the 15th, but it was created on the 13th. So precipitation that fell between those 2 days would not be accounted for in this drought monitor. So what were conditions like really on the 13th is what this is showing. And if you compare it to what we were like about a month ago, this is what the change graphic is showing on the right. You can see that we've got nice greens, which is showing some improvement across much of the southeast, especially Florida, which is awesome for them. So if you look back at the current drought situation, we do still have a little bit of moderate drought or D1 across southern Georgia and a little bit of Florida, but honestly, we've really seen some great improvement for them. When you shift farther west, looking at the southern plains, it's been kind of a mix. We've seen some wet areas and some dry areas. So when you look back at the drought monitor itself, we do have some abnormally dry areas in those yellows. We've also seen some drier areas across the mid-Mississippi River Valley and into the Ohio Valley, and that's showing up as some abnormally dry and just a little pocket of D1 moderate drought in northern Missouri. The big area that we've really been monitoring is the North South Dakota region and into Montana, and that's really worsened over the past month, unfortunately. So we've really got some severe drought conditions that are expanding in those regions and a large area of moderate drought. I know ranchers in that part of the country are starting to get very concerned and are starting to sell off their cattle. So in summary, for the remainder of June, we are looking at wet conditions in the east, the Great Lakes, as well as much of the Gulf Coast region. For the central U.S., we're looking at pretty much normal precipitation, and then for much of the west, it's looking at below normal. From a temperature standpoint, we're really looking at cool across that far northern tier. Otherwise, for most of the southern 2/3 of the U.S., it's going to be on the warm side. And then from the tropics, we are watching those two areas, the one in the Gulf of Mexico as well as the one in the southern latitudes of the Atlantic Ocean. And that's probably the 18th through the 20th time frame, so late this weekend into early next week is when we're really monitoring for that. For the month of July itself, we are looking at a pocket of below normal precipitation across the Central Rockies and into the Intermountain West, above normal precipitation for the western Gulf of Mexico and Montana. And then for temperatures, we're looking at above normal across much of the nation, with again those little bit stronger signals of above normal in the desert Southwest, Florida, South Texas, and even into a little bit of New England. From the drought standpoint, the drought really has worsened in the northern plains, and that's something we're going to need to monitor. We've also got some areas of dryness, though, in the Ohio valleys as well as the Central and Mississippi River Valley. Southern plains is a mixed bag right now of pockets of dry and wet, but the good news is we've seen some solid improvement in the southeast. So to close out, who are we as Weather Integrations? Well, we are a weather analytics company that's providing critical weather forecasts and notifications that's tailored to your specific business operation. With our weather action alerts, we always provide you insight as to how the forecast is going to impact you over the next week and a recommendation of how you might consider altering your operations over the next week. We're trying to help you really leverage when Mother Nature provides an optimal weather day for you to do a certain task or operation, as well as shift from when it's going to be not so optimal, because you may actually lose money if you do that operation on the non-optimal days. Our Growcaster product is specific for those in agriculture. If you are in agriculture, we encourage you to go to our website and sign up for our 14-day free trial. Give us a try. We'd love to know what you think, how we can improve the product to better serve you. Finally, if you have questions about these outlooks, please don't hesitate to ask questions on our social media or leave comments in our YouTube channel, and we will try to address those questions just as soon as possible.